And welcome everyone to UUCCI. I'm Reverend Nick Cable and I serve as minister of this congregation. It's a joy to see you, whether you're here, whether you're watching from home, or whether you're corralled in the narthex as a part of our new Try Not to Disrupt, our wonderful music in the morning. After the service today, we have a resurgence of coffee and conversation. You know, that used to be kind of a big deal. And we're going to continue to kind of fold that back in as a way to really maybe come for the sermon, but stay for the wonderful time and enjoying our grounds. And I hope you'll enjoy the back patio and just say hello to someone new. A few things coming up. You might know that this Saturday is Pride in Columbus, Indiana. And for many years, that Pride has been going on, perhaps each year since Pride has started. UUCCI has had a booth there to uplift and show to the greater Columbus area that there are communities here that embrace you for who you are and who you love, regardless of your sexual orientation or your gender identity. And so we're looking for volunteers. Many of you have volunteered there in the past. It's a great way to just be a part of a lot of fun and color and music and food. And Sandra Bolte is organizing this. And so we really do need some volunteers. So Sandra's going to raise her hand. And Sandra will be in the fellowship hall after the service. So please, if you can devote an hour, 2 hours, come and hang out with Sandra, and just make sure people know that this is and can be ever more a welcoming community for all. Also, I hope you'll continue to look at your program guide for the fall and your Friday reminders, because there's always great initiatives going on. We're still looking for more Chalice Circle participants. We're relaunching Chalice Circles this year, which is a small group once a month get together in the library here, facilitated by wonderful people like Sharon Mangas and Mark Kevitt. So check out your Friday reminder and get involved with that. And there's also a great multi-week program, adult education program that Cindy Stuckey is also leading. So keep an eye on that. Next week, I hope you'll join us back here on Sunday. We'll have a guest minister from Indianapolis, Katie Romano Griffin, who will lead us in a series of child dedications as we grow as a community and think about what it means to dedicate ourselves to the youngest among us. And if you're still wanting to get dedicated, and whether you're 1 or 91, it's not too late. So let us know, and we will help find a way to fold you into the service. Once again, it's a joy to be together this morning, and whomever you love, we want you to know you're welcome here.
Our gathering words are by Gretchen Haley, forged in the fire of our coming together. What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? In these days, we find ourselves too often stuck with these questions on repeat. What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? We grasp at signs and markers, articles of news and analysis, Facebook memes and forwarded emails, as if the new zodiac, capable of forecasting all that life may yet bring our way, as if we could prepare, as if life had ever made any promises of making sense or turning out the way we'd thought, as if we are not also actors in this still unfolding story. For this hour, we gather to surrender to the mystery, to release ourselves from the needing to know, the yearning to have it already figured out, and also the burden of believing we either have all the control or none. Here in our song and our silence, our stories and our sharing, we make space for a new breath, a new healing, a new possibility to take root, that is courage, forged in the fire of our coming together, and felt in the spirit that comes alive in this act of faith, that we believe still a new world is possible, that we are creating it already, here and now. Come, let us be together.
Oh, how I missed you, old friend. Wonderbox. Remember those days, Jan? Remember the Wonderbox? It's aged well, like all of us, these last few years, and it's good to see it again this morning. And I need someone to help open it up. Do you want to open this up? Pull up. Oh, okay. Now hold on. Get this one right here. Okay. Yep. Let me hold it. You hold it like that. Right at the top. Show it to people. All right. So here we have a little piece of grass. And I found this morning when I was thinking about our time together. You see this grass? And then what's that right there? What is that? Is that dirt? And what's this right here? Oh, pretty good. This is the stem and this is the roots. I'll hold it for a second. Why don't you go sit by mommy, okay? So this is a little thing that was the best I could do to find a little example of the different parts of our universe, our organic universe. We have a little, you want to hold it again? And so one of the things we're talking about today and this fall and during the sabbatical is about our roots. Does anyone think of a hymn that we sing every single week that has the word roots in it? Spirit of life, Liz, thank you. And we say in those words, which we'll sing a little later, roots hold me close, wings set me free. And we're going to be focusing a lot more on roots, but perhaps at times in the next several weeks, we might get to our wings. But this root system is, I don't know if it's complicated, but it's got a really big one. And then I'm guessing there's little tiny ones that come off the side of it. And so we're going to learn more about our roots today. And then we're also going to see if there's anything else in here. Do you want to look again? Oh my. Oh my. You want to get that? Oh boy. What is this? What is this called? Seed pod. I don't know if it had a technical term. Oh my gosh. I found this outside too. What's in there? Pull that little white part. Just grab a little bit. Yep. I'll throw it really high in the air. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And let go of it too. Whoa. So we're going to talk a little bit about how the roots relate to this seed pod over the next several weeks and how we're a little bit of both and how if we don't have the roots, it's hard to really have this moment of great glory like Forrest Gump. Oh, that was a feather. That was feather with Forrest. But it's something that will help us to remember why we need both our ability to ground and our ability to go, to ground and go. Sometimes we just want to ground. Sometimes we just want to go far and fast and never be grounded. But today and over this fall, we're going to be talking a little bit about why we need a little bit of both. All right. We have one reading and then one reflection today. As you might have seen in the order of service, there's a slight little change up we're going to be experimenting with this fall and this year, which is to have the traditional kind of call to worship or opening reflection move later in the service to allow that to be more deeply received right before the sermon. Connections by Marge Piercy. Connections are made slowly. Sometimes they grow underground. You cannot always tell by looking at what is happening. More than half a tree is spread out in the soil under your feet. Penetrate quietly as the earthworm that blows no trumpet. Fight persistently as the creeper that brings down the tree. Spread like the squash plant that overruns the garden. Gnaw in the dark and use the sun to make sugar. Weave real connections, create real nodes, build real houses, live a life you can endure, make life that is loving. Keep tangling and interweaving and taking more in, a thicket and bramble wilderness to the outside world, but to us it is interconnected with rabbit runs and burrows and layers. This is how we are going to live for a long time, but not always. For every gardener knows that after the digging, after the planting, after the long season of tending and growth, the harvest comes.
My dad was a Catholic, but he was not a traditional follow all the rules kind of Catholic. He was more of a cultural Catholic, and his devotion to it was because of his Irish Catholic heritage. He never talked about sin or heaven or hell, nor did he lay any guilt trips on us, and he did whatever praying he did in private. I asked my mom about this recently, and she said she felt he just carved out his own beliefs based on his humanity, and that he prayed because he hoped there was a God. I thought that was pretty you of him, actually, and I think that liberalism gave me the freedom to do my own searching. When I was young, I went to Mass and Catholic school because of my dad and friends. Community. Dad went mostly because of his family's history. Dad's family had been in Evansville until his father was transferred to Indianapolis. And as Irish Catholics in Evansville, which was heavily Protestant, his family was not overly welcome, even having the Klan threaten them at times. I don't know how precise his stories were, but between the Irish immigrants suffering under British oppression to the Klan attacking his family in Evansville, Dad developed a heart for the underdog and marginalized. Many of his activities, both religious and social, were focused on civil rights and social justice. He was compassionate, and an activist. He truly believed we could be good people and make the world a better place. When our family moved to Bartholomew County 30 years ago, we had no intention of joining a church, having rejected our home churches and finding no need. Moving to Bartholomew County, honestly, gives one a whole different perspective on the need for like-minded community and spiritual searching. Wow. I had not expected to feel ever again pressure to join a church. But the sort of constant encouraging or hint dropping from our neighbors about good Christians and how we should take our kids to their VBS, I didn't even know what VBS was impressive. When I learned that there was a UU church in town, I was both surprised and delighted. This was exactly what we needed to fit in. A church that allows for spiritual searching, is open and welcoming, and works on social justice issues sounded like heaven to me. Dad's influence on me as a young person, watching how he navigated his role at our church in Indy, and also how he was able to do important work, paved the way for me. Our UU life has been hugely influential on our life in Bartholomew County, allowing us to be ourselves and learn and share our lives with a wonderful community.
First, I'm grateful that Dr. Mangus is here because I've been having this sort of vision issue lately, and it's been related to this sabbatical that some of you are aware of, some of you have been told countless times and are in denial about, some of you are so eager and excited to learn more about, but I've just been having these visions, and people want them to get straight, get clear, and today's it. So please check me out afterwards in case anything misses the mark. So today, you see in the order of service, I didn't write sermon. I wanted to talk a little bit about this sabbatical vision that I've been having and really have been having for about 21 months. I looked at my board reports to the board 21 months ago, which would have been December of 2020. Was the first time we uttered out loud that it might be good to think, at some point to start thinking about starting a study committee to think about going on sabbatical. I could hear the board just sort of saying, what? We're in the middle of a pandemic. What are you talking about? And remember, this is December 2020. And as things go sometimes in congregational life, we're right on track, 21 months of thinking, and we still got 4 more before doing. So today, it's a little bit about catching those of you who have not been a part of some of those conversations, because planning a sabbatical or planning anything with a wide group of people can be kind of difficult. But several, I would say about a dozen people have been involved in fleshing out what a sabbatical might look like, not only for me, but for all of us. You may recall last year that we had a great, maybe it was even, yeah, I think it was about a year ago, that we learned from Lilly Endowment that we received a $50,000 grant to support our sabbatical. Whew, okay, well, money's no issue now, but still a lot of details to be figured out. And so that's a little bit of what today is. So before I go into that, I want to talk about a few words. One of them is roots. That is the theme for not only this year, and especially this sermon series this fall, but also the sabbatical itself, helping us as Unitarian Universalists look to our roots, not our navel, which can sometimes feel navel gazing, self-reflection, self-examination, you might say, discernment about who we are and where we're headed, but really about a deep exploration of our roots that are going to help us as we think about where we are as we enter 2023 and think about the next chapter of our shared ministry. And in that, of course, you know, I like to think about words and what they mean. But ultimately, the purpose of focusing on roots is that I think we are needing to remember who we are. I think that's a big part of this year, is remembering who we are and who we are together. And I think our roots, going down to our roots, will help us to do that. So a couple words that are in the sermon title: radicals and radicants. Let me tell you a little bit about what I mean by those. So radicals, some of the etymology there is of or pertaining to the roots, favoring fundamental change or change at the root cause of something. We have become radically changed over the past 30 months. I don't know if you feel the same or even can remember who you were before the pandemic, but there has been a radical shift that has happened in our hearts, in our families, in our communities, and in the world due to the pandemic. And that has given us a need to, before we move forward, to go down and look at the roots. Radicants is a less common term, but we have roots that we can bring forth. Radicants is the roots that come forth. And that is inviting us, as Liz mentioned in her piece, that it's not just about having roots that hold us down, but roots that send us forth, that push us forth into a next chapter of our lives, giving us the ability to not just be rooted, but to move and to grow and change, even if that is a radical change. And another word, I didn't actually add it into the sermon title, but I really love more and more, and I'm thinking about maybe we need to incorporate this sometime, but it's the term radicare, R-A-D-I-C-A-R-E, radicare, which kind of sounds like a little mush up between radical and care. I don't know if that's not what the Latins thought, but I'm sure it's like radicare or something like that. But radicare is it's about by doing so we can take it means to take root. It's actually the kind of the work of taking root. And I think that we have been a little rootless, perhaps a little rudderless, and to borrow a different imagery, and now is an opportunity for us to care for one another so deeply that we return together, take root, and move forward. So that brings me to our Life Roots sermon series this fall. You might have noticed this beautiful hardcover for our fall orders of service. That hardcover will be with us the next several months, just as a nice way to also offer a welcoming message to visitors, but also members who maybe aren't here as regularly. So the first time they're back, they'll see that message. And on the inside right of the hardcover, there is an overview of the 6-part sermon series that I know you're all already booking in your calendar so you don't miss a single one. And I wanted to just tell you a little bit about it. I haven't forgotten that I'll tell you about the sabbatical, but this is an important, while I have your attention, better talk about these things first. So the 6-part sermon series really is broken down into 2 groups of 3. You can see the first 3, and then the second three. And the first three really get into what I consider as the three types of roots we have as human beings in life. We first have our biological roots, whether we know them deeply or whether we don't know them well, whether they're quite comforting or whether they are quite fraught. Our roots of biological ancestry, known or unknown, shape a big chunk of who we are and how we, well, came into the universe, but also kind of some of the shaping of our life journeys from then. So that's the first one on October 2nd. On October 9th, then we're going to get into the second type of roots, which is about our spiritual roots. And before we hiccup, spiritual here just is a catch-all for culture, music, non-biological influences on your life. You might feel spiritually rooted, connected to something. Maybe it's to folk music or to West Virginia Chamber of Commerce. I don't know what it is, but you're sort of feeling a connection to something, and you might not be immediately sure that it's like, it might not have a biological root, but it is something that I feel like I'm a part of that history. Perhaps Unitarian Universalism is something that you were not born into, but it's something that you came to, and you feel rooted in that history, even if it was not something that was given to you by a family member. The third piece is around, the third type of root is on the 16th, and that will be about our local and context roots, our contextual roots. This is what I think is the third piece. You got biological, you got like every other influence in your life, and then you have your context roots, the place, the physical places of your existence. So much of what I'm saying about today, we're about the contextual influences of that person, talking about his father and things like that. And of course, these are all intersected, and we won't do the whole sermon here today. But that third root is really important. Your context root, your local root, and you could even call it your congregational root. So how this influences you as Liz raised her family here in this congregation, how that congregational influence impacted her children and her family life. So that's the third root. So these types of roots we will explore. They shape us into who we are, how we understand ourselves and our place in the universe. The final 3 Sundays then, after a break on the 23rd, when our racial justice team will be talking with us about the 8th principle, we will return and we will talk about kind of what happens when our roots get disrupted, when something shifts, changes, dies, gets challenged. And if you haven't noticed, the last few years have all been about disruption of our roots, of our sense of knowing of who we are and where we are. What is true for us has been disrupted. And so in a way that's a metaphorical, and perhaps for some in your families or friends, a literal death, change in family relationships and work relationships and things like that. So there'll be an inevitable focus on death as our annual service, memorial service on October 30th, will help us to start thinking about how that catalyst of loss and change really propels us into the possibility of something new. Okay, and that'll bring us into November, and we'll finish it off by talking a bit about how through that loss and that change, the disruption, perhaps including the pandemic or sabbatical, can bring open way for a new garden to emerge. Okay, so from that might embody some of the principles we've been living into, the values we've been embodying for years, decades, that might start popping up around us. And so I'll be exploring a little bit of what's such a to borrow a term, permaculture could look like for us as Unitarian Universalists. And then finally, the long-awaited Generosity Sunday, where we pledge ourselves anew to the work of this congregation, and we give our anticipated pledge for 2023. We'll talk about the harvest, as Marge Piercy said, after the long season of tending and growth. the harvest does come. And so this is going to be one to not miss, these 6 services really this fall. And I hope, as I explain soon, the sabbatical to be not to be missed as well. So why sabbatical? What is sabbatical? Sabbatical is, in my mind, going back to that term radical, a radical invitation for renewal and transformation. Over the past 30 months, as we've said, we have just been in a state of survival, and now we are able to not just survive, but to reconnect, to heal, to remember, and to move forward as a community. I invite us to slow down this fall and this winter, and be reminded of Reverend Kathleen McTeague's words when she says, "We come together this morning, or any morning, to remind one another to rest for a moment on the forming edge of our lives, to resist the headlong tumble into the next moment until we claim for ourselves awareness and gratitude, taking the time to look into one another's faces and see their communion, the reflection of our own eyes. This community of laughter and silence," she goes on to say, "of memory and hope is hallowed by our presence together." This isn't always possible, this type of transformation, renewal, unless we devote intentional time and resources to the work, to its work. And so that's why a sabbatical is so necessary. But why now? Why now? Due to the uncertainty of the pandemic and our past couple years, you might say, why now? Might be a good question to have. For many of us, we have not experienced a sabbatical ministry before, or if you have, we may have one singular experience of sabbatical ministry that might be projecting onto what our sabbatical ministry might be like. We might be asking, as Reverend Gretchen Haley writes, what's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? As she says, in these days, we find ourselves too often stuck with these questions on repeat. What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? And the answers are a lot is going to happen. Yes, you're going to be okay. And show up is what you can do. Show up and experience the spaciousness of invitation for renewal. A lot will be happening this winter, and winter is a great time for renewal. It's a great time to come inwards, to find warmth, to drink coffee, to share and reflect about who you are and how you cannot take for granted 1 minute more the importance of being a caring community. Everything will be okay because at our roots, we are resilient, we are hopeful and courageous to get through anything, even a pandemic. It's almost like an afterthought now. We made it through a pandemic. I mean, there's definitely losses and changes, but think about it. 2 years ago, we felt we're going to make it. We're going to ever get to a place where we're not wearing masks, we're singing songs. I think it shows a level of resilience and care to stick with it. And what can you do? We can all show up and add your voice, your heart, everything that you are into this invitation for radical renewal and transformation. So let's get the vision out in the open. I want to share with you a couple pictures to get you excited about this time. So the sabbatical is from January to April. How are we going to take everything I just said and manifest it into 4 months of invitation of transformation? And just for the record, I'm focusing on what you're all going to be doing. This isn't even yet what I'm going to be doing. So let's remember where the cart and the apple and the horse and the whatever is. All right. Because this sabbatical is about all of us. I said to the sabbatical planning team, the beautiful thing about what you all get to do on sabbatical is you get to do it together. And I do it by myself, and I'll have some time with family as well. But you get to go through that experience together, and that shouldn't be taken for granted. So you will be in good hands. I think that's the first thing you got to know. You have an amazing group of leaders like Kate Hyatt, Linda Iwamuro, Steve Jasper, Jim Farless, your staff, which I unfortunately left off this PowerPoint, but your amazing staff of Louise and Adrian and Brittany and many others, and your hands too. You will be in good hands this winter. So we'll have this sabbatical team that Kate Hyatt is chairing. She's leading that. She has a wonderful respect in the congregation, a former board president, and she leads an amazing team of committed people and staff. You'll also have a great board of trustees that is healthy and that is committed to making sure we don't miss the opportunity of this sabbatical. And of course, led by Linda Iramuro, a longtime and deeply committed member of our congregation. You'll also have a great Sunday services team with Steve Jasper, and never have your picture online or I'll find it. So I found that one online. That's good. And we're going to have great services, all these great services where you get to hear different voices and different people, and services that emerge from the community, and music services and the like, backed by an all-star team like Liz and Chris and Cynthia and all the folks, and Peggy and Steve and Sky. Oh my gosh, Sky, yes. I went and we'll have a great pastoral care team, because this caring community has not just like, oh, we better start figuring out how to care for each other. We've been a caring community for so long, and Jim Farless, with a trusted group of, a trusted team of leaders in our congregation, as we heard a testimony this morning about Tom. We'll also have support from staff and Reverend Katie, who I'll talk about in a second. But that's not all. We have some other great things to look forward to. There will be many sabbatical guests during our time. We'll have many sabbatical guests, including Elizabeth Valencia. Well, I'll talk about all these people in a second. Scott Russell Sanders, Reverends Derek Jackson and Sarah Getty McNeil, and Carrie Newcomer, including more, perhaps a surprise or two, if those weren't surprise enough. So first, we're going to have a sabbatical preacher. This is an amazing, powerful speaker, powerful emerging Unitarian Universalist leader in our movement up in Indianapolis. She's an activist, a hospital chaplain, and she's going to come with us with a wealth of experience in both community or grounded work in justice work, but also as someone who's been on quite a journey herself. She's of Mexican descent. She was born Catholic, converted to Islam as a young adult, and is now a Unitarian Universalist Muslim. And so I think those identities alone will give us all an ability to slow down and consider how our individual roots might need some additional thinking about how those roots impact us. Katie Romano Griffin, who will be here this next week and preaching this next Sunday, is the new senior minister of All Souls Unitarian Church and a good friend. She will be our emergency pastoral care on-call person and offer great support for Jim and the pastoral care team and the staff. And then this is kind of the biggie. This is really the biggie. We're going to have 3 weekend-long retreats. Some of you might have been at the retreat this yesterday with the racial justice team. These retreats are going to help anchor the experience during the sabbatical for all of you. You might know some of these names. So it'll start off, and if you're trying to remember the dates, it's the last weekend of February, March, and April. You can write them down, and there'll be more ways to remember them, but these are a good way to remember. It's the last weekend of each of those weekends, or each of those months. So the first one, Scott will first help us to ground ourselves, to understand the spirit of place, this place that is beloved for so many of us, and all the places of our lives that have shaped us into who we are. So Scott will come and do a weekend retreat, including a Friday night performance / experience. But then most of it will happen on Saturday, and he'll be involved in the service on Sunday. And then we'll have 2 Unitarian ministers, Sarah Getty McNeil and Derek Jackson, 2 very respected ministers in our movement. They will come and invite us into the importance of storytelling, the importance of remembering our stories as a congregation and your stories from your personal life. This is not a retreat focused on helping people be moth radio hour perfect storytellers. This is not what that's about. It's about understanding the power of your stories to help you find resilience and courage to move forward. And then finally, Carrie Newcomer will come for a weekend retreat. She'll do a Friday night performance where Scott will return, and they'll do a kind of a duo evening here on Friday night. Carrie will lead us in a very powerful workshop on Saturday to help us to think about our emerging our emerging song, the song line that goes through our congregation's history and what might be peeking out as we come out of this pandemic. And of course, the Sunday services on all of those. Oh, what a beautiful opportunity ahead. Grow together in community, rededicate your sacred grounds, and nurture interfaith partnerships, not losing sight of that last one and whatever else may come, because there's going to be other things that just naturally emerge during that time. So the last two things is that we've budgeted in this grant to do some type of physical creation to help us to rededicate ourselves to our grounds, to the interfaith campus, whatever that looks like. Scott Russell Sanders will help us to imagine how we might visualize that physically, and that'll happen kind of after he leaves. And then also, some of you might remember Peace Camp. It's been a few years now, but it's also been one of the most kind of essential parts of who we have been as a congregation, something many of you are very proud of. And because of the pandemic, we've stopped doing it the last few years due to various things, but there has been commitment to have a resurgence and a return with our Hindu partners, with our Jewish partners, our Buddhist partners and pagan partners, and perhaps others, to do an interfaith peace camp, whatever that looks like. It hasn't been planned. That's why we'll need all of you who are interested to help out, but to have that kind of return in June, and how powerful an expression of our emerging community might that be. And then, after all is said and done, we will begin again in love, and I'll return on Sunday, May 7th for a beautiful music Sunday headlined by and a reunion celebration together after this great experience. You haven't even heard what I'm doing yet. That'll be rolled out very shortly. And we'll return together on the exact date of the 6th anniversary of when you called me as your minister, and when you all called yourselves to shared ministry, called yourselves to a new chapter together. So there's a nice little picture of us. Little did we know in May of 2017, and kind of all the journeys we've had since. So that's a little bit of it, Doc. It's been a little, for some of you, it might seem like I've been going a little cross-eyed or been a little disoriented lately. I've had this beautiful parental leave with Cedar, but I assure you, you have been in good hands. The planning has been going. It's been beautiful. And now this fall, we have an opportunity to prepare, to accept that invitation deeply, and move into to all that might come during that sabbatical. I am grateful for the trust you put in your board, the trust you put in me and your staff, and the trust you'll put in yourselves to be a part of this community this year. It really is going to be a beautiful thing. And I can't wait to see how you grow, how I grow, and we grow together. May it be so, and amen. It's easy to forget that we were once in a pandemic, so afraid of the smallest of interactions. Remember this fall and look back a year from now, and I just can't wait to see where we go together. May it be so, and amen.